Hi everybody, this is Jack Cook. I'm the creator of Blign, and today I'm going to show you guys a quick tutorial just on how to use it. So first off, Blign is an installable add-on for Blender version 2.8, and it can be found in the 3D view sidebar by pressing N on your keyboard, like this. So let's get started. The first and the simplest thing that Blign can do is just take objects and then align them to an axis. So let's say I want to take all these objects here and just align them to the green y-axis. I can select all of them, and then under the Principal Axes / Planes tab, I select Y-axis and just click Align, and all the objects have now teleported straight to the Y-axis. But as you can see, these two objects are overlapping, and that doesn't look too nice, so what we can do, we can just click Distribute, and now all objects are evenly distributed from their centers between the first and the last object in space. In Blign, you can also distribute from the edge of an object. So if I select Edge here and click Distribute, now the space between the edges of each object is even. In Blign, we can also select a value for the spacing. So let's say I want there to be 3 units of space in between the edges of each object. So I can just go to this bar here, set it to 3, and then when I click this checkbox, that enables spacing, and now when I click Distribute, there's now 3 units of space in between the edges of each object, and you can see that from an orthographic view here. There's also a lot of different alignment options that you have in Blign. So let's say I want to align the bottoms of all these objects right on the y-axis. So under the Align To button, I can select -Z, and what that does, that takes the most negative Z point of each object, and that moves it to the point of alignment. So now with all these objects selected, I click Align, and as you can see, the bottom of each of these objects, or the most negative Z point, is now along the y-axis. And you can do that with any direction, positive or negative, X, Y, or Z. Now I'll show you what the Align to Plane option does for these objects. So let's go back to where we were previously, with the objects just scattered about space. So now let's say I want these objects to be aligned to the YZ plane. So in other words, the plane that's along the Y and the Z axis in this direction. So what I can do, I can click the Align to Plane button and select YZ, and now when I click Align, instead of just moving objects to the Y axis, it moves them to the YZ plane here, as you can see. So now I'm going to explain the significance of the Add Object button. As you can see, there are 3 main tabs in Blign. There's the Principal Axes / Planes tab, and then Align to one object and Align the 2 objects. And each of these tabs is to be used depending on how many Blign objects we have added. So since we've had no Blign objects added so far in this tutorial, we've been doing everything under the Principal Axes / Planes tab. So now I'll show you how to add a Blign object. It's very simple. So let's say I want to add this cone as a Blign object. I just select the cone and click Add Object, and as you can see, its name appears here. It just says Object 1 is cone. Now since we have one Blign object added, we're going to do all our operations under the Align to One Object tab. So first I'll show you how Align to Plane works in this tab. It's pretty much the same as in the Principal Axes / Planes tab. However, it just aligns all the objects to the plane wherever this cone is in space. So say we move this cone back here. It's not over the y-axis anymore. And now whenever I select all objects and click Align to Plane and have YZ plane selected, now when we click Align, it still aligns all the objects in the same fashion, except it does it where this cone is in space. And we can also do all the same operations as in the Principal Axes / Planes tab. So let's say I want to align all these objects along the y-axis where this one cone is added. So when we go back to the axis option and just select y-axis and click Align, now it moves all these objects onto the y-axis created by this cone along its center here. And we can do all the same options that we had before. We can click distribute objects from their centers, distribute them from their edge, and we can also indicate the value of space we want between objects, so say 4. And I'll show you in an orthographic view here. Now I'll show you guys how to use the Align the 2 Objects tab. So let's say I want to add a second Blign object. say this cylinder on the end here. I select it, click Add Object, and now I'll move this cylinder down here in space. Now when I go into the Align the Two Objects tab and have all objects highlighted, when I click Align, it moves every object, removes the center of every object to the line created between the two Blign objects. In this case, this cone and this cylinder here. And in this tab, you'll still have the same Align To options as in the other two tabs. So, as you can see, we can still align to the positive or negative X, Y, or Z direction. So let's say I select positive Z. Now when I click Align, that moves the most positive Z point of every object along the line created between the two Blign objects. So finally, I'll talk about distributing between two objects. Currently in Blign, there's only the option to distribute from an object center when you're doing it between two objects. So when we just click the Distribute button now, as you can see, the centers of each object are evenly distributed along the line created between the two Blign objects. And there's also the option to select a value of spacing, say we choose 5, and click Align, and that does space the centers of each object 5 units apart on that same line. However, there's one bug right now where sometimes the objects are rearranged in space. So that'll be fixed shortly. Alright, that's all I have for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you guys get a lot of use out of Blign. Thank you.